So this is the Kudila television channel being broadcast on the internet, only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable platforms. This is the Kudila television channel being broadcast only on the internet. This broadcast is being made from London, within quotation marks, United Kingdom. This broadcast is timed at 2300 hours GMT on Saturday, the 7th of December 2024. This broadcast is being made in the context of the turmoil that is happening in social, political, ethical spheres in the United Kingdom, and the increasing bent and orientation that is manifest in the behavior of what I call the political murderer of the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, who is attracting or being sucked into the orbit of the fascists and the international brigades of criminals, deniers of universal human rights, and he is inflicting layers and layers and layers of denial, deprivation of human rights on the most vulnerable people in the United Kingdom. This broadcast is coming on the day or at the end of the day, which has been observed as being the day when nasty Nigel Farage is being propped up as the likely winner of the next British general election. Now, nasty Nigel Farage is the nasty Nigel Farage who has been sucking up to the devil that is now due to return to the White House in January 2025, following the disastrous performance of the Democratic Party, which has not shown any moral fiber, ethical fiber, universal fiber, yielding to the pressures of the fascists and the neo-fascists, both in the United Kingdom and in Western Europe. The Saturday, 7th of December 2024, editions of the British newspapers, I had to check, as I have to check every time before a broadcast is made, the content, the bent, and the orientation, and the gloss on the papers, on the front pages of what is called collectively the Fleet Street papers. Now, the reality of London, especially across East London, the area includes the London Borough of Tower Hamlets and the London Borough of Newham and the London Borough of Hackney. These boroughs are sinking into backwardness and denial because the availability of newspapers has become a challenging reality. So in order to get the newspapers, I have to travel right across East London, spending on the public transport system any amount of time before I finally got hold of the There's newspapers, especially the Saturday edition of the Murdoch London Times newspaper, which carries a magazine with it. That is the only remaining phenomenon that cannot be predicted as to the contents. So, as I find, when I eventually got hold of the Times newspaper with a magazine inside it in an outlet of the Sainsbury's supermarket, I find that the magazine has an article about the victim of serial gang rapes choreographed by her husband in France, the woman called Pellicotte. Now, that article is written by somebody from the Times who was attending the entire trial of the criminals that lasted quite a long time. Now, that is something that I would not have predicted in terms of the item, the subject or topic in the magazine. And without that, nobody else would have told me what the contents were. When I say nobody, I include the overwhelming majority, absolutely overwhelming majority of people who post either their photographs or the photographs of somebody else on the social media. And the contents of what they post is absolutely beneath condemnation. There is nothing, there is no reference to the real issues of absence of morality, the absence of compassion, the absence of universal equality and solidarity. So that is as far as the British media is concerned. That is just an introduction. Over to the situation in Bangladesh. The events in Bangladesh, dated the 5th of August 2024, have been described as the second liberation of Bangladesh. Now, that raises the question of the first, the presumption of there having been a first liberation of Bangladesh, by which it is suggested, I suppose, that the 16th of December 1971 was the first liberation of Bangladesh. Now, the period between the 16th of December 1971 and the 5th of August 2024 is a period that will be examined more thoroughly now than it had been during the period. And I will consider item by item the various elements that constitute whether it was a liberation or whether it was a transfer of the superpower that is India in comparison with Bangladesh, that took over from the military or militarized forces of what is now Pakistan, but what was West Pakistan up to the 16th of December 1971. The 5th of August 2024 was the date when Sheikh Hasina, Sikh, S-I-C-K, Sheikh Hasina avoided being assassinated or imprisoned or captured or whatever. Whatever the fate would have been, she avoided that. Now, that fate that she would have met if she hadn't escaped, fled Bangladesh, is now being forgotten by her, it seems. because she is now being promoted, launched by the Narendra Modi backing servile mass media across India, who the mass media outlets in India, especially the one called the NDTV, New Delhi Television Company, which has got both satellite as well as other outlets, which was founded by a husband and wife team, the West Bengali husband and wife team. They're now retired from the frontline management of the organization, but the agenda remains solidly against against Bangladesh populated by Muslims. This is the thing that is actually arcing, irritating people like the NDTV and others. Of course, the Hindutva majority regime that is fronted by Narendra Modi is fueling and encouraging Sheikh Hasina to make statements condemning the current interim regime in Bangladesh post 5th of August 2024. I personally don't have much confidence in the ability of either Muhammad Yunus or of most of his individual advisors. Not because I'm prejudiced or predetermined in my observation about them, but because I have seen no evidence in their utterances, in the interpretations, as to the extent to which they understand the concept of Bangladesh, the extent to which they associate Bangladesh with the concept of independent international sovereignty. And so, therefore, it is a period, although they are calling it the revolution, post 5th of August revolution, I don't believe that they are capable of delivering most of what a revolution actually warrants. And most of the people who were denied and deprived of basic human rights and liberties and freedom of speech and freedom of association, etc., in the period that was dominated by Sheikh Hasina being in control for 15 years plus, most of those people who have been denied and deprived and robbed and violated and imprisoned and injured and so on, most of those people are not going to be compensated by the regime that is now in place in Bangladesh. So, what is happening is that if this regime continues to fail to deliver, then it will fail. And by default, it will actually pave the way for the restoration of forces and elements that are sympathetic to the ousted Sheikh Hasina. Shall be continuing on those issues and topics in due course. Now, the month of December in 2003, the month of December 2003 was the month during which I walked from Brick Lane to Liverpool Street with K. Jordan, discussing at that time, discussing the threat that was coming to Brick Lane, the existence of Brick Lane from the Crossrail Hole plot. And during that walk, K. Jordan and I decided to launch the Kudilar campaign, and the Kudilar campaign became a reality in terms of the launching of the first street rally in the Greater X Street on the 22nd of October 2004. And that rally was actually held to directly expose the distance from the electorate, from the demography that was being maintained by the then Labour Party controlling group that was in control of the local Tower Hamlets Council. That was the first ever rally, and that has been so far the first ever rally of that scale, of that intensity, held by the local people or held in defense of the local community against the locally elected Tower Hamlets Council, since the Tower Hamlets Council was created and since it came into existence with effect from the 1st of April 1965. The impact of that rally is still being felt in the distribution of various positions of power in the local council that would not otherwise have been in the way that it is now. Even the corrupt frontage of the council by the crooked, proven crook Lutfur Rahman would not have been possible. So we shall be updating on all of those in due course. Now there is a review. There is a review of a book by the former leader of Germany, Angela Merkel. And her book has been reviewed on the Times review of today, Saturday, the 7th of December 2024. And the reviewer, I'll just reach for the name of the reviewer. Well, this is the magazine, the supplement that is Saturday Review. And the book which one? Now, this is not the right edition. This is the previous week's, previous Saturday's paper. So I'm going to search for the paper of today and hopefully I'll find this. I have to postpone it until the next edition of this bulletin because I'm finding it difficult to get hold of that. I'm going back to the issue of the Timeless Council fronted by Lutfur Rahman, and the edition of the fortnightly yes private lie, which is the edition number 1638, running from 6th of December, which was yesterday, until the 19th of December 2024. This one has got in the Rotten Boroughs section another entry on Lutfur Rahman. Let's see. Yes. So Rotten Boroughs on page 13 of Private Lie, edition number 1638, running from 6th of December to 19th of December 2024. This has got Rahman report. Now, this is a stupid, absolutely pathetic, useless, toothless, rubbish item. It says the elected mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, Lutfur Rahman, is relatively easily pleased, it seems. What a stupid thing to say. What's the point? It says he has come off pretty lightly from a government best value inspection, despite the report accusing his leadership of suspicious and defensive behavior and ignoring criticism if it does not support either the mayor's point of view or his priorities. What is that supposed to mean? The government has stopped short of imposing commissioners to oversee the authority, and instead, two unpaid ministerial envoys, much the same thing, are being sent in. Rahman is to chair a transformation and assurance board that must include at least two opposition councillors, etc., etc. Now, when the former communities minister, Eric Pickles, made a speech in the House of Commons on the 4th of November 2014, in which speech he announced that he was going to send in commissioners, so-called commissioners, to Tower Hamlets, because he said that the evidence was compelling. The Tower Hamlets Council, fronted by Lutfur Rahman, was not making good value for money decisions, etc., etc. Now, the commissioners were fronted by a former fire brigade man called Ken Knight. The Ken Knight was so abysmally stupid and useless that I had to physically face him, confront him during one of his sittings in the then Mulberry Place Town Hall and accuse him of being a liar to his face. Not once. I delivered a statement lasting few minutes in which I called him a liar and I called the others with him liars. So that is the extent to which the private lie is absolutely useless. It has no contextual reference to the regime of the so-called commissioners. I have got thousands and thousands and thousands of items of communications that I sent to the Tower Hamlets Council during that period, accusing the council of corruption that remains rampant even now. And there was no evidence in the behavior of Ken Knight and his so-called fellow commissioners of recognizing the duty to deal with the corruption that was staring them in the face, etc., etc., etc. Now, this rotten boroughs itself is dead. It has got nothing. I mean, if it is supposed to be about corruption in local councils, then there is no evidence that the guy who actually does this, Tim McGuire, is it Tim McGuire? I have to check the name of this guy who does this page or this column. He doesn't understand the councils, and he doesn't understand anything that remotely refers to accountability or the role that local councils play in denying the local population of basic rights, etc., etc., etc. So I'll be coming back to this issue in another edition. Now I'm still looking for that. I'm still looking for that review. Yes. Yeah, this is the one. I found it now. This is the review. So on page 10 of the Saturday Review of the Times supplement, it's a review of the book by Angela Merkel by Oliver Moody. And the book is called Freedom, Memoirs from 1954 to 2021 by Angela Merkel. And this review is completely prejudiced and stupid and ignorant. It hasn't got anything to do with the significant contribution that Angela Merkel made towards distancing the regime in Germany, and therefore, under that, the regimes in neighboring countries in Western Europe from the pro fascist, pro racist, anti Muslim, xenophobic obsession. Now, this Oliver Moody, who I have to check the background of, is an idiot and a racist because he doesn't give Angela Merkel any credit for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 achievements. I mean, I could go on listing many of the achievements of Angela Merkel in the context of the quality of leadership to be found in the behavior, in the personalities of her contemporaries in other Western European countries during her period in power. So, next to that review is a review of the second book by Boris Johnson, Flanky, Nadine Dorries. And this is a book called Downfall, the self-destruction of the Conservative Party. And picture, the picture of Doris standing next to Boris Johnson is typical of the propaganda role that Nadine Dorries has been playing in support of the idea that the only person who is fit to lead the Conservatives and thereby lead the United Kingdom is Boris Johnson. But surprisingly, this reviewer, Patrick McGuire, says things in this review that he, as a columnist, as a reporter on the Times newspaper has never done, not that I have noticed, which is absolutely splendid and also disappointing because none of the things that he has said against Boris Johnson as a dishonest individual has ever appeared in any of his columns. So he says this review is not a review actually of the book. This review is a review, it's a rebuke of Boris Johnson and also of course, Nadine Dorries. Now there is a article in the Daily Mail of Friday, the 6th of December 2024. That article is an article by I'm just looking for the piece. Janet Street Porter. Now, Janet Street Porter, I mean, I will go into Janet Street Porter's promotion of herself in that quite a lengthy piece that the Daily Mail has given her space for. Another time, just make a note of that. Now, today's Saturday, the Daily Mail, 7th of December 2024, has got a piece on page 27. It's labeled exclusive by Lisa Brinkworth and Vanessa Allen. And it's a piece that is headed Al Fayad's Ghislaines. Ghislaine is spelled like Ghislaines. That is an echo of the name of Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the facilitator of the sex trafficking of young girls for the benefit of Jeffrey Epstein and of Andrew Windsor. So this one is saying a string of Ghislaine Maxwell style female super enablers assisted Harrods boss Muhammad Al Fayed during his decades long abuse of women and girls. It was revealed yesterday. Keaton Stone, a journalist who spearheaded a 6-year investigation into Fayed, said he had amassed evidence against the women who allegedly helped his vile abuse, who could still face justice. Police believe the former Harrods owner, who died last year aged 94, may have raped and abused at least 111 women and girls over almost 40 years, including a victim who was only 13 years old. Scotland Yard are investigating the role of at least 5 potential facilitators as part of a wide-ranging review that is also looking at historical police corruption allegations. Keaton Stone said he had the names of dozens of such enablers and compared their role to shamed socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, who groomed and procured girls for billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Keaton Stone, 45, an independent investigative TV producer, told the Mail, "There are a hell of a lot of Ghislaine Maxwell's in bold. Mr. Stone has investigated Fayed since his then fiancée, now wife, Sophia, revealed she was sexually assaulted by the former Harrods boss while working as his personal assistant. She went to police in 2020 and gave a 31-page statement, but was later told the sexual assault case was being dropped because Fayed was said to be unfit to face charges. The couple were horrified. The couple were horrified. The case was closed, and Mr. Stone sought out other women subjected to similar ordeals. More than 400 women have contacted the Justice for Herod Survivors team. Lawyers for the women sent the first legal letter of claim to Harrods this month, and the barrister Bruce Drummond said hundreds more such letters would follow. Mr. Stone compiled a dossier of evidence that led to the BBC documentary Al Fayed, a predator at Harrods. He learned the abuse was not limited to the Knightsbridge department store, but extended throughout Fayed's businesses and personal empire, including his Park Lane residence, his Surrey mansion, the Ritz Hotel in Paris, Fulham Football Club, and on board his private plane and yacht. The scale of the allegations raises serious questions over how his conduct went unchecked, despite the Metropolitan Police seeking advice from the Crown Prosecution Service overcharging him. He was never charged with any sexual offense. A file of evidence was passed to the CPS in 2015, but it was deemed not to have passed the legal threshold for charges to be brought. Now, another item this week has said that Fayed pretended to be suffering from dementia. One of the things that he used in order to avoid being prosecuted. We shall be continuing to investigate these revelations. I'm taking okay, there is an item about a man called, within quotation marks, of course, a man called Lord Ranger. Now, this CBE that he was given, has been taken away. It has been annulled and cancelled by King Brian. Here is the piece that reports about that. The Conservative peer, Lord Ranger, has hit back after forfeiting his CBE, describing the decision as unjust. Ranger's forfeiture of his CBE was announced yesterday with the Cabinet Office, the United Kingdom Cabinet Office, the government Cabinet Office, saying the decision had been due to him bringing the honor system into disrepute. Now, the three allegations against him are as follows. The Forfeiture Committee, which decides whether to strip someone of an honor, took the decision after considering social media posts made by Ranger about the Sikh community, that is, the religious community SIKH, Sikh community, along with comments in the media about Pakistanis. It also considered the House of Lords Standards Commissioner's finding In June 2023, the ranger had harassed and bullied the Indian journalist, a woman called Poonam Joshi, in a series of tweets. The news agency reported. A spokesman for Ranger insisted that the PR had been a worthy recipient of his CBE, adding the manner in which it has been taken from him, is shameful. Ranger, who has donated about 1.5 million to the Conservative Party since 2009, was made a CBE in 2016 for services to business and community cohesion. Can you believe it? And he was a noble, that is, made a member of the House of Lords in 2019 in Theresa May's resignation honours list, but lost the whip after he was censured by the Standards Commissioner. Now, Ranger apologized to Poonam Joshi, whom he branded as toxic, a total nutcase, and the epitome of filth and garbage. Now, think about this. How are rubbish and filth like Ranger made members of the House of Lords? Can you believe that? So Starmer is now in a row dispute with the UK Civil Service, and we shall be updating on those issues that are covered in another edition. Now, this woman called Prue Leith is supporting a sex attacker, Greg Wallace. Prue Leith is a presenter on the Great British Bake Off. She has told Times Radio that while it was really stupid for stars to become arrogant and think they were irreplaceable, it was also wrong of producers to think they could not control bad behavior. There is no such thing as an irreplaceable talent, she told Kathy Newman, the presenter of Times Radio. I mean, they thought they couldn't replace Mary Berry, and they did. She said of her predecessor on the baking show. Prue Leith, 84, said she hoped due process would be observed to investigate Wallace before judgments were reached. He should just stay off social media because he's just digging himself deeper and deeper into a hole because he's too insensitive to understand how offensive it is. But that's his problem. That he's insensitive. He hasn't, that I can see, disobeyed the law. I don't believe people should be cancelled or sacked. Now, he has disobeyed the law. He has shown two fingers to the law on so many levels that run into dozens and dozens of occasions, is a shameless, disgraceful moron. Now, this is the Times, the piece that I couldn't actually source when I mentioned that Nigel Farage is likely to win the next election and the Labour Party is nervous. Nigel Farage is more confident than ever, reports Stephen Swinford, Geraldine Scott, and Chris Smythe. And finally, in this edition, there is this piece about the sale of the Observer by the Guardian group. An agreement to sell the Observer to the news startup Tortoise Media prompted a row at an all staff company meeting hours after the deal was struck. Bosses were jeered and accused by staff of concocting an establishment stitch up and riding roughshod over our values in a packed conference room at the Guardian's offices in King's Cross, central London. The fury had been provoked by the 11 a.m. announcement that the world's oldest Sunday newspaper, which has been owned by the Guardian Media Group since 1993, was to be sold to Tortoise, a news publisher established in 2018 by James Harding, a former director of BBC News and former editor of The Times. One staff member said that Catherine Viner, editor of The Guardian, and Oli Jacob Sunday, chairman of the newspaper's owner, the Scott Trust, had failed in their duties. You have run roughshod over the Scott Trust values of integrity and honesty, they said. You have not met your responsibilities as leaders of this organization. It is damaging for the Guardian, and you should all be thoroughly ashamed of yourselves. Tortoise is understood to have paid a nominal sum and has promised to invest £25 million in the Observer over the next 5 years and will relaunch it as a Sunday print newspaper and standalone digital brand behind a paywall, echoing the subscription model successfully employed by the magazine brands such as The Spectator and The Atlantic. The deal was welcomed by the media consultancy Enders, which said that the Observer had been underutilized by the Guardian. Now, this is a Polish name, Claire Holubowski. This is the pronunciation I'm making interim. I may have to update the pronunciation at a later occasion. A senior research analyst said it now has the chance to restart its own identity, a crucial factor for long term sustainability within today's rapidly shifting media environment. The purchase process will be the beginning of a long road towards integrating the two complementary brands and has every chance of a bright future. At the meeting, Weiner warned staff that the Observer faced a bleak outlook if it remained under Guardian ownership. The newspaper has steadily dwindled to just over 100,000 readers, with an estimated financial contribution to the business about 3 million before shared costs. If the Observer stays within the Guardian, when it has no digital brand, then its future is just less and less, Weiner said. You can't argue that news organizations behind paywalls don't have a big impact when the New York Times and the Times have huge impact. But one journalist told the panel of bosses, which also included David Olusoga, a Scott Trust board member, and Anna Bateson, chief executive of The Guardian, that it was their prospects which had worsened. You've shot yourselves in the foot by alienating the vast majority of people in this building. You've lost the dressing room, and it doesn't look good for you guys. Simon Hatterstone, I'll read that name again. Simon Hattenstone, a feature writer who has worked at the paper for 34 years, accused Sunday of not knowing the names of key journalists, including Sonia Soda and Carol Cadwallader. When Weiner claimed the suggestion had been made because the Norwegian Sunday was foreign, she was loudly condemned with shouts of shame. Sundays defended his record of promoting liberal journalism across Europe over a 30-year period. Staff were particularly aggrieved by the decision to agree the deal during the first strike action to affect the Guardian in 50 years, etc., 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 etc. Now, I'll say that the Guardian and the Observer both are liars. The Observer supported the crimes against humanity perpetrated by Tony Blair in collusion collaboration with George W. Bush. When there was this huge, unprecedented, historic gathering in Hyde Park, London, of more than 2 million people attending the protest gathering against the attack on Iraq, then editor of The Observer distributed thousands of copies of a leaflet to the people taking part in the Hyde Park rally against the war on Iraq, supporting the war on Iraq. So, what do they mean by liberal journalism? There is no evidence of liberal journalism.